Shalom family, it's your man Eliyah, your friendly neighborhood teacher. I'm a healthy, wise, strong, protected, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Most High Creator, we come before you at this hour, and we ask you to pour out an abundance of your spirits of grace and mercy upon us, forgiving us for all of our sins, known, unknown, and forgotten. Most High, your word says where two or more come in your name, your spirit will abide. Most High Creator, we ask that you pour out an abundance of your spirits of wisdom, knowledge, discernment, and understanding upon me and everyone watching this video at this time, and everyone who watches this video later, Most High. Give us eyes to see and ears to hear what words you have within these books, Most High. Give us understanding of your wisdom, Most High. Take us to another level. In Yahushua's mighty name we pray. Ashe, Ashe, and Ashe. Family, I know I usually start off with reading a Bible verse, but I'm not going to lie. Forgive me, Most High, I forgot. I was, my mind just, I was behind. I need to get to it and I wasn't thinking. But the next video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the scripture. But we reading from the Zohar today, family. We just, we don't usually do about the usual 10, 12 page. But that'll usually take us a minute because, I'm such a great reader. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump in, family. The Zohar. Ooh, one second. Let me get me something so I can, okay. And they that are wise shall shine as the brightness, Zohar, of the firmament. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Zohar, the luminous mirror, or in other words, the beatific vision whose splendor and brightness are reflections from the highest heavenly sphere, through which gaze those who have attained the higher life. Nurho de Manhar, page 278. Woe to the man who sees in the Torah, i.e. law, only simple recitals and ordinary words, because if in truth it only contained these, we would even today be able to compose a Torah much more worthy of admiration. For if we find only the simple words, we would only have to address ourselves to the legislators of the earth, to those in whom we most frequently meet with the most grandeur. It would be sufficient to imitate them and make a Torah after their words and example. But it is not so. Each word of the Torah contains an elevated meaning and a sublime mystery. The recital of the Torah are the vestments of the Torah. Woe to him who takes this garment for the Torah itself. The simple take notice only of the garments or recitals of the Torah. They know no other thing. They see not that which is concealed under the vestment. The more instructed men do not pay attention to the vestment, but to the body which it envelops. Quoted from the Zohar. In 1877, H.P. Blavatsky completed Isis Unveiled. This compendium was followed in 1888 by The Secret Doctrine. These tomes follow the thread of the most ancient revealed philosophies relating to cosmogenesis and anthropogenesis as it wends its way from the Atlantean races through the Aryan Egyptian, Chaldean, and later Kabbalistic traditions. Correlating symbols from various cultural and religious systems, they begin their cosmogonical discussions at the very doorstep of the Ein Sof. The secret doctrines of the world, called generically Kabbalah, traditions passed from mouth to ear, are the inner teachings or better learnings from centuries of initiated adepts. Our current religious teachings are merely institutionalized replicas, the sadly tattered garments of which the simple take notice. Let the simple beware, H.P. Blavatsky has, although but partially unveiled Isis, As a result, The Secret Doctrine is a Kabbalistic book, the depth of which far surpasses that of others available to us. Using quotations from The Secret Doctrine and a few others as indicated, this annotated version of Moses de Eliyah Zohar attempts to demonstrate this disrobing. The terminology of HPB is quite specific, realizing the impossibility of exact translation from one language and symbology to another. Terms are simply left untranslated. Those who are not familiar with esoteric concepts, especially those transmitted through Sanskrit, should hasten to read the Theosophical Glossary by HPB and The Divine Plan by Geoffrey Barboca, an exceptional commentary on The Secret Doctrine. The national format aims at several goals. Firstly, to correct errors of translation, transcription, and transliteration. Then to correct the biblical references. Here it must be remembered that Jewish and Christian Bibles differ slightly in their versification. No standard has been selected, and the quotation references herein have been corrected as per the Zohar, unless the difference is only one or two verses. Additionally, the compiler has tried to make clear without interpreting the basis of the discussion, whether it be on a peculiar wording or spelling in the Hebrew version or a cultural practice. Very little Hebrew lettering has been reproduced here. The following transliteration schema was used: A, B, G, D, H, V, O, U. Okay, yeah, y'all see it. In most cases, the Masorah has been considered unnecessary and misleading, so vowels are omitted. In neither NDM nor HPB can any consistency be found. All editorial notes are in the bold typeface. Special notice must be taken relative to HPB's system of emphasis. Italics, first letters capitalized, all letters capitalized, are used with no apparently consistent gradation. The placement of the annotation was done with a mind to present either a clarification of meaning or a presentation of another key. The words selected in the Zohar body as reference points may or may not be germane to the issue. Often they indicate no more than the place to consider the note. Much valuable information from The Secret Doctrine has been omitted due to its length or complexity. Especially falling into this category are quotes from Key to the Hebrew-Egyptian Mystery in the Source of Measures by J. Ralston Skinner, 1875, Wizard, 1972 reprint. It would well behoove serious students to acquaint themselves with this second key to the Kabbalah and with the SD references thereon. The SD pagination given is that of the original edition of 1888, as found in the Secret Doctrine reprints by the Theosophy Company, Theosophical University Press, and Theosophical University Press and Theosophical Publishing House. The Theosophical Society of Adiyar in 1896 published A Secret Doctrine, Volume 3, a collection of miscellaneous papers found among HPB's effects. This is, of course, not the Volume 3 mentioned by HPB in the SD as being in preparation. Give me 1 second, family. It remains undiscovered. In 1938, the Adiyar edition was published in 6 volumes with extensive editing volumes, corresponding to the first and second volumes of 1888 and the 5th volume covering the so-called Volume 3, added in 1896 by Annie Besant. Volume 6 of this edition contained a new index and bibliography. Unfortunately, with the over 10,000 changes affected, a common shurat number of typos and errors found their way into the text. With the discovery of the lost Wurzburg manuscript in the 1920s, it was found that materials gathered by Miss Besant for her volume 3 SD were in fact the original uncorrected foolscap used in the preparation of the Wurzburg MSS to 1886. These facts are set down in some detail by Boris de Zirkov in his historical introduction to the Adyar 1978 publication of the SD 1888 pagination, 2 volumes plus index volume. The historical introduction has also been issued as a 78-page paperback entitled Rebirth of the Occult Tradition. When the 1978-1980 editions of the Nurho de Manhar translation were published, no other alternative existed. If the old SD3 references were to be included, then to cite SD3. Now, however, with the publication of the 14th volume of the collected writings of H.P. Blavatsky, which carefully compiles with the actual text of the Wurzburg manuscript, all such citations can be shown in their original unedited form. Accordingly, over 150 corrections have been included in the present edition, and all former references to SD3 have been revised to BCW, followed by a Roman numeral indicating the appropriate volume, in spite of difficulties of translation, or perhaps because of them. Nurho de Manhar undertook to render the Hebrew Zohar into English. It has not been determined whether the Cremona Mantua or one of the several latter editions was used. As a check on his literal accuracy, his translation was compared with the Sansino edition, Cremona folio indication being added therefrom, and several deviations are noted. The folio pagination has been placed with the first note occurring on the page for editorial ease. The actual page change might be anywhere on the page. The accuracy is limited further since even Moses de Leon compiled his midrash from several minor manuscripts, which had been committed to writing at first by Simon ben Yochi, his son Rabbi Elazar, and his secretary Rabbi Abba. It is well to remember that the Kabbalah by Isaac Meyer, being compiled from writings of Ibn Gibrol, some 225 years prior to the Zohar of Moses de Leon, contains the same learning, but does not couch it as biblical commentary in the matter of the Midrash of the R. Simon B. Yochi, Ibn Gerbrol's writing, are more closely in accord with the Chaldean Book of Numbers, unavailable in the West at present. This Book of Numbers, from which the Sefer Yetzirah was taken, is often referred to simply as the Kabbalah by HPBN. Conceptual accuracy is only determinable as the Talmudic Hebrew symbology is shown to relate to its successive predecessors, ancient Hebrew, Chaldeo-Babylonian, hieroglyphic Egyptian, and Aryan before. Even though NDM didn't publish beyond Parsha Lek, his translation is committed to terms consonant with the secret doctrine and was thus chosen for reproduction. Also, HPB considered the first 4 chapters. I keep thinking of HPV every time. Forgive me, family. Also, HPB considered the first 4 chapters to contain the whole story, the rest being merely allegorical repetition. Thus, the Sephiroth become the Elohim, which become the patriarchs, just as the builders become the Prajapatis, which become the Rishis in the Eastern Kabbalah. Consequently, the majority of SD references are directly applicable to early sections of the Bible, and therefore the Zohar, since the function of its edition is to show esoteric students of all traditions how to approach the Zohar, even without knowledge of Hebrew language or culture, this incompleteness is of secondary importance. A major hurdle to intelligent learning of midrashic and Talmudic literature is surrounded by the secret doctrine. Students will find greater understanding forthcoming as their ability to concentrate increases. In these works, several lines of discussion are carried forward simultaneously. The student must learn to keep in mind and recall arguments, and these introduce many pages before as the process weaves an ever-increasing complexity of interrelated material until all previous apparent discrepancies are resolved. This method of discriminative development is peculiar to Jewish learning, and as per Maimonides, is the raison d'etre of Talmudic pupil. Western students have typically disregarded the secret doctrine for this reason. A close study of it, however, reveals its great continuity of thought and development of abstract and highly refined distinctions. Who was Nerho de Manhar? This remains a mystery. His use of English would suggest a British education, as does his understanding of Jewish cultural practices. The manuscript was probably mailed to the United States and published without adequate proofing, as evident by misprints in the original installments of the Word. These have been corrected by notation when considered misleading. The apparent literal and conceptual accuracy of his transcription of Kabbalah from Chaldea Jewish tradition, recorded by Moses de Leon and his Christian Gnostic believing co-workers, speak for itself, though. His oft-times poetic rendition brings life and heart to the study of their development. Its incompleteness is regretted for this alone. By reading this edition concurrently with the Sansino, that somewhat materialized garment might become of renewed value, as in the ancient Midrashic and later Talmudic traditions. Moses de Leon presents the Kabbalah based on biblical foundations. Unfortunately, the Bible itself has passed through many transcriptional thresholds, denied by orthodoxy from the Egyptian of Moses, the Chaldeo-Akkadian, thence to the Hebrew of Ezra, and finally the Greek Septuagint, upon which our current Hebrew versions appear to be based. Interpreted, corrected, and edited by the Masorah and the Church, it has become verily the Book of Babel. The present volume is presented with the hope of clarifying many of the resultant dogma by Theosophists or divine wisdom. Okay, that was like the, what's it called, family? The opening, the writer's remarks. Now we jumping into the meat. The Sefer HaZohar of the Book of Light, or the Book of Light, by Nerho de Manhar. As a preliminary to the translation of the great Kabbalistic work, the Sefer Zohar, or Book of Light, we purpose to sketch in brief outline the history of its origin, the nature and purpose of its doctrines and teachings, as also the great influence of its philosophy, which is reflected in the writings of Albert the Great, Reuchlin, Raymond, Lowly, Boheman, Moore, the Platonists, Spinoza, Balzac, and many others whose names are famous in the annals of literature and learning. To the readers of the late Madame Blavatsky's works, Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine, this will doubtless prove acceptable and enable them to understand and comprehend those parts in which she has incorporated the philosophy respecting the Sphäroth and shown its close similarity in many of its aspects with Eastern teachings. There is scarcely a page in which some reference to it is not found, with Hebrew words, the explanation of which would have enhanced the value of the above works and added to the environment and edification of theosophical students in general. To supply this desideratum, it will be necessary to give details respecting Kabbalah, of which the Zohar is justly considered to be the profile fountain, from which has flowed that stream of occult philosophy that has entered so largely as an element in the teachings of mystics of ancients and modern times. The ancient Jews were not different from other nations in having occult schools and institutions in which secret doctrines were inculcated and imparted to neophytes, or to the sons of the prophets, as they are termed in the Bible. These teachings were twofold in their nature and character, and denominated Bereshith, or the science of the natural world, also Merkaba, which had relation to heavenly or spiritual science, and which was esteemed and regarded as most sacred and never to be revealed except to initiates, and then only orally as amongst the ancient Druids. That which was received was termed Kabbalah, a Hebrew word signifying reception, or rather what is received and handed onto others in short aphorisms and mnemonical words, the meaning of which could only be deciphered and comprehended by those who had successfully passed through a long course of esoteric studies. For instance, ADM, or Adam, taught that the soul of Adam the first was incarnated in David, the king, and will eventually appear in the form of the Messiah. It is said that Kabbalah first originated after the expulsion of Adam from the Garden of Eden, and was communicated to him by the angel Raziel, in order that he might be better able, through attending to its teachings, to regain his lost estate. The common tradition, and most generally accepted, is that Moses himself was the real author of Kabbalah, having received it during his residence of 40 days and nights on Mount Sinai. After his descent therefrom, he imparted it to Aaron, who in turn handed it on to his sons, through whom it was given to the 70 elders of the children of Israel, and coadjutors of Moses in juridical government, and polity. Through the judges, especially the prophet Samuel, it was delivered to David and Solomon, the latter becoming renowned throughout the East for his extensive and profound knowledge of Kabbalah, by which he was able to perform marvelous things and acquire control over all beings, demons, spirits of the air, fire and water, and make them his obedient and subservient ministers. During the reigns of various kings of Israel and Judah, we gather that this Kabbalah was widely taught and studied in the schools or colleges of the prophets. During the reign of various kings of Israel and Judah, we gather that this Kabbalah was widely taught and studied in the schools or colleges of the prophets, presided over by hierophants, of whom Elijah and Elijah were remarkable examples, and distinguished not only by their loftiness of character, but also for their knowledge and manipulation of nature's occult forces and powers, by which they stand out boldly and prominently in Jewish history. These occult societies were generally distinguished by the wearing of some special badge or emblem indicative of the peculiar occultism of which they were the professed followers and adherents, such as a raven or hawk, eagle or dove, a lion, a wolf, an ox or lamb. Their members, whenever sent out to any benevolent expedition or political mission, always went in couples, similar to the rule of custom in vogue at the present time with monks and nuns in the Roman Catholic community. From this fact we obtain a satisfactory and rational explanation of the extraordinary and miraculous feeding of Elijah by 2 ravens who brought him in his place of retirement and concealment bread and meat for his daily sustenance, instead of 2 birds noted for their thievish propensities. We see how 2 members of an occult school who were perfectly acquainted with the whereabouts of Elijah and so ministered to the bodily wants and necessities of their great Hierophant. It is also related of Alexander the Great, on his entering into one of the chief cities of Egypt, that he was welcomed by 12 doves at the head of a large procession of the citizens, and who greeted his presence with some remarkable signs of congratulation and strangeness, of which vanishes and disappears when we recognize in these doves members of some occult institution held in veneration by the general populace, and thus qualified to be the exponents of their good wishes and feelings toward the conquering Alexander. The Babylonian captivity brought the Jews into immediate contact with Chaldean and Persian philosophy, which introduced a great change in their speculative ideas of the creation and divine government of the world. Chaldeans, hold on, is that Chaldean? Oh yeah, Chaldean magic and occult science became objects of deep interest and study, and ultimately resulted in the formation of new societies and sodalities, in which secret rites and ceremonies were performed and celebrated. All knowledge of their teachings was jealously guarded, and their members were bound by the most solemn oaths not to divulge or reveal them to the profane or common people. These esoteric schools abounded throughout the East, especially in parts of Arabia and adjacent countries. And now we enter into the historic domain and gather from the pages of Philo Judaeus, a famed Jewish mystic and philosopher, who in his treatise on the advantages accruing from a contemplative life makes mention in reference to the Essenes, and gives a somewhat full account of their methods and objects of study. They lived an ascetic life, and at stated intervals indulged in meditation after reading portions of sacred books or writings entrusted to them. At other times they assembled in solemn conclave for interchange of thoughts and ideas which had come to them in the seclusion and silence of their cells. They spoke slowly and with deliberation, says Philo, regarding eloquence not so much as clearness in expression of ideas. They frequently repeated themselves in order that their sayings might become engraved in the minds of their auditors. In the interpretation of Scripture, they indulged greatly in the use of allegories, as the law appeared to them like a living being. The physical body was the letter and words. The soul was the invisible spirit hidden within them, a spirit by which the student, guided and led by reason, begins searching after those things which are of importance to him, discovering most wondrous and beautiful thoughts under the form that envelops them, rejecting mere outward symbols in order to lead the mind to the light, and for the use and advantage of those who, with a little aid, are able to perceive truths and things invisible by means of and through things visible. They fully recognize that the spiritual world has no remote region in the universe, but was surrounding them and not very far away from them. For them, there existed no broad, deep gulf, no solid wall or partition between the natural and spiritual worlds, no insuperable and impenetrable barrier, no insuperable and impenetrable barrier between them and the spirits of great and good men made perfect and who had once been teachers of nations. If differences there was between them, it was one of state and condition, and this they endeavored to mitigate and obviate by purity of life and thought, esteeming no self-denial too great, no sacrifices too transcendent or comparable to the enjoyment of spirit intercourse and instruction, resulting in the subjugation of their lower nature, and so clarifying their minds that they became luminous mirrors in which were reflected the secrets of the universe. This was their philosophy as expressed by an old Arabian sage. When my soul said he shall become in harmony with the divine life, then will it be a reflection of nature's great and secret truths. Such is the general description of these occult schools or lodges widely prevalent in the East, and which continued to exist into the time of Rabbi Simon ben Jochi, the great Kabbalist and reputed author of the Zohar, or the Book of Light, whose name is held in reverence and esteem by all true students of occult philosophy. His biography, though short, is not uninteresting in its character and details. He lived and taught in the reign of Hadrian, the Roman emperor, when the Jewish nation was subject to much hardship and persecution, and their rabbis or recognized teachers labored under grievous disabilities, being prohibited from giving instructions to their students, a restriction which Rabbi Simon had the singular boldness and courage to ignore and disregard, and thus incurred the anger and displeasure of the Roman rulers. He had to flee for his life and conceal himself in an unknown and solitary abode. He had been holding a discussion in one of the synagogues with Jehuda ben Eli and Jose ben Halefta, or Jos ben Halfeta, two famous rabbis on the comparative character of Jewish and Roman manners. Jehuda commenced his discourse with an eloquent eulogium on the Romans as the greatest promoter of the material convenience and civilization of the people they governed, instancing their public works, architecture, and the patronage they gave to the useful arts. When Rabbi Josi's turn came to speak, he exhibited the cautiousness which had given him the surname of the prudent, and observed an impressive silence. The desecration of his colleagues was, however, lost upon Simon, whose animosity to the Romans for the harshness and cruelty exhibited towards his brethren vented itself in a fiery invective against the oppressors, which, becoming the topic of public conversation, aroused and excited the displeasure of the civil authorities. He, along with the above rabbis, was summoned to appear before the magistrates. The silence of Rabbi Josi was deemed a sufficient ground for banishment to Sepphoris. Rabbi Judah was allowed to exercise the office of a preacher in the synagogue, but Rabbi Simon was condemned to death, a sentence which he evaded and escaped by immediate and timely fight, accompanied by his son Eleazar. For several years he remained in seclusion and lived as a hermit in a cavern, engaged in the development of Kabbalistic science as embodied in the Book of Zohar. After the death of the Emperor Antonius, he left his place of concealment and reappeared as the founder of a school in Tekoa, a town in Palestine. About 300 of his sayings are recorded in the Talmud. The whole of his life was absorbed and spent in the study of Kabbalah, in which science he was and still in regard as one of its most eminent masters. He lived in a world of his own, in a region beyond the bounds of ordinary nature. Students and learned rabbis from all parts flocked to him and enrolled themselves as members of his school, in which subjects of the highest philosophy were discussed. Instructions by great teachers such as Moses, who in the Zohar is styled the faithful shepherd, and the great prophet Elijah, who in luminous and resplendent forms appeared to their mindset, were imparted on matters and subjects of the most abstract and occult characters, and which were recorded. My bad, family. Give me a sec. Okay, 6. Oh yeah. Let me go back real quick. Instructions by great. I'm starting on the other page, okay, for a reason, and coming back to this one. Instructions by great teachers such as Moses, who in the Zohar is styled the faithful shepherd, and the great prophet Elijah, who in luminous and resplendent forms appeared in their midst, were imparted on matters and subjects of the most abstruse and occult character, and which were recorded, I'm back on the page now, in secret writings by students deputed and chosen for that object. There is an affecting account of his death given by one of his students in the Idris Sota, or Lesser Assembly, one of the appendices to the Zohar. As a teacher he had lived, and as a teacher he died, surrounded by the scholars who loved him dearly. Mercy, he was saying, have ascended unto the Holy of Holies, for their Adonai have commanded his blessing forever, more, even life everlasting. There was a sudden pause. His head fell slowly on his breast. Intently gazing upon him, they listened in deep silence for further words, but no words came from those lips that had been so eloquent in speech. They were his last words, and not inappropriate as a final to a life like his. Suddenly, a strange supernatural light surrounded the house at that moment, says Rabbi the scribe. I heard a voice which said, before thee are countless days of blessedness, and then another saying, he asked life of thee, and thou gavest them, and thou gavest then another saying, he asked life of thee, and thou gavest him the years of eternity. Throughout all that day the flame continued around the house, and no man entered or went forth. I lay weeping and sobbing on the ground. At length the fire departed, and I perceived that the soul of him was the light of Israel had departed also. His corpse was reclining on the right side, and a smile was on his face. Eleazar his son took his hands and kissed them. We could find no utterance for our grief till tears began to flow. 3 times his son fell down in speech of sorrow. At length the power of utterance came to him, and he cried, Father, Father. As the funeral procession moved toward the grave, a light revealed itself in the air, and a voice was heard exclaiming, Come, gather yourselves to gather to the marriage feast of Simeon. Ere entered upon the analysis of the Zohar and its contents, we would premise that the Kabbalists teach that the divine being has expressly committed his mysteries to certain chosen individuals, who in their turn handed down to others who proved themselves worthy to them. These mysteries relating to man's spiritual existence and guidance are concealed in parts of the Holy Scriptures, the interpretation of which is the province of Kabbalah. To understand these mysteries, the student will find it necessary to acquaint himself with the metaphysical principles as laid down in the earliest writings and documents of this science. As in later times, professors of Kabbalah have been incorporated with it many of their own ideas and philosophic doctrine. Okay, family, hold on. Where was I at? Okay. To understand these mysteries, hold on. I lost where I was. Gather yourselves together to the marriage feast of Simon. Ere entering upon the analysis of the Zohar and its contents, we would premise that the Kabbalistic teach that the divine being has expressly committed his mysteries to certain chosen individuals, who in their turn hand it down to others, who prove themselves worthy recipients of them. These mysteries relating to man's spiritual existence and guidance are concealed in parts of the Holy Scriptures, the interpretations of which is the province of Kabbalah. To understand these mysteries, the student will find it necessary to acquaint himself with the metaphysical principles as laid down in the earliest writings and documents of this science. As in later times, professors of Kabbalah have incorporated with it many of their own ideas and philosophic doctrines culled from Greek and Arabian sources. Okay, hold on, fam. Let me look at something real quick, because I'm not going to lie. Okay, now let's keep going. Kabbalah as a constituted science or system of theosophy is divided into two separate sections, the theological and the practical. This dealing with the visible creation and term Bereshith, that dealing with the spiritual world and the attributes and perfection of the divine being, is denominated the Merkabah, or the chariot throne, with its attendant angels, as seen and described in the opening chapters of the book of Ezekiel the prophet. The doctrines of creation are succinctly outlined in the Sefer Yetzirah, or book of creation, the inputted author of which is said to be no less a personage than Abraham, the patriarch himself. As this work with a translation of its contents will form a subject of future consideration, we shall confine our remarks to the no less important Kabbalistic work, the Zohar, in order that our readers may obtain a clear idea of the philosophy of this strange and remarkable interesting book. It will perhaps not be out of place to lay down or touch upon a few of the fundamental axioms which more or less form the basis of systems of philosophy, ancient or modern, Eastern or Western, and especially in Kabbalah, such as from out of nothing, nothing can proceed. Therefore, no substance that now exists has been produced from nothing, and whatever exists is in one sense uncreated. All existing substances are emanations from one eternal substance. In the act of what is commonly termed creation, the eternal being drew from himself. Consequently, there is no such thing as matter in our sense of the word. Whatever we call matter is only another form or species under which the spirit comes into manifestation. Therefore, the universe is a realization of the infinite and immanent effect of his ever-active power and presence. Though all existence flows from the divine, yet in this world different from the Godhead, as the effect is different from the cause. Nevertheless, as not separate, but abiding immanently in him, creation is everyone the manifestation of himself. The world is the mantle with which he clothes himself, or rather, it is a revelation of the Godhead, not in his hidden essence, but in his visible glory. In giving existence to the universe, the first act of the Almighty was the production of a power and principle intimately and specifically related to himself, to which are given the names of his Holy Spirit, his personal world, his first begotten Son, in which the Kabbalists in general personify and term Adam Kadmon, or the archetypal man, and who in turn calls to proceed from emanations from himself. All the lower forms of actual existence in their several descending series and gradation. According to Kabbalists, God is the author of the letters. Spirit is a revelation of thought in the form in which intellect or mind pronounces itself most distinctly. Letters are the organic elements of speech, and therefore he who taught man language, or who made him, as one of the Targums expresses it, Ruach Mem-e-Elah, a speaking spirit, must have been the author of the letters of the primeval language. The first 10 numbers and 22 letters of the alphabet, considered analogically as types of divine operation, are denominated the 32 paths of wisdom, of which the Almighty created the universe. The works of God, says the author of Kasri, author, famous Kabbalistic work, are the writings of him whose writing is his word, and whose word is his thought. So that the words, work, and thought of God are one, though they seem to man to be three. And in the universe harmony reigns in manifoldness, so the letters and numbers constituted a system which has its certain hierarchy. The unit predominates over the three. The three rules over the seven over the 12. The center of the universe is the celestial dragon. The circuit of the zodiac is the basis of the year. The heart is the center in man. The first is elevated in the world like a king upon his throne. In the 7 organs of the body, there is a kind of opposition which sets the one against the other, as in battle array. 3 promote love, 3 engender hatred, 3 bestow life, 3 lead to dissolution, and one cannot apprehend by time without the other. Over the whole of the triple system, over man, the world, and time, over numbers, letters, and Sephiroth, the only true king, the one God, rules forever and ever. Such are the chief fundamental ideas which permeate the whole texture of the Zohar, which, as we observed, forms the standard and code of Kabbalistic philosophy. The body of the books takes the form of a commentary extending over the 5 books of Moses, viz., the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and is of highly mystical allegorical. The book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and is of a highly mystical and allegorical character, in which was the most general and favorite method of teaching and imparting instructions to Eastern countries. In addition to these, there are 18 supplementary portions. Okay, family, I'm gonna do like 3 more pages and then I'm done, because I'm struggling right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of hold on. Let me go back to this page right here. So 1. Sephra Nutha, the Book of Mysteries. 2. Idra Rabbah, the Great Assembly, referring to the school or college of Rabbi Simon's students in their conferences for Kabbalistic discussion. 3. Idra Sota, the lesser assembly of the few disciples that remained for the same purpose toward the end of their master's life or after his decease. Saba, the aged man. Midrash, Ruth, a mystical exposition of the book of Ruth. Sefer HaBahia, the book of clear light. Sopheth, an edition. Ray Malima, the faithful shepherd, Moses. Hakaloth, the palaces. Sithri Torah, the secrets of the law. Midrash HaNilam, the concealed treaties. Rosdi Racin, the mystery of mysteries. Midrash Chasith, on the canticles. Mamor Ta Chasi, so-called from its first words, come and see. The youth. Pekuta, illustration of the year. Chibura Kadma, the early work. Methutin doctrines. The contemporary is sometimes called Zohar Gradol, the greater light. The supplements Zohar Katan, or the lesser light. Though the Zohar is said to be a commentary on the Pentateuch, it must be understood that the interpretation is Kabbalistic, and that the literal sense of the words is only a covering or garment of the true meaning. With the Kabbalists, there are two ways of regarding and speaking of the divine being. When they speak simply and directly of his nature and attributes, their style is severely metaphysical and abstruse. But at other times they indulge in the use of metaphor and allegory to most extraordinary, if not extravagant, degree. At the same time, declaiming against the possibility of any attempt to describe the incomprehensible because infinite being. This is especially the case with the Sifra Dinutha, or Book of Mysteries, of which the following extract is a fair sample of his style. He is the ancient of ancients, the mystery of mysteries, the concealed of concealed. He hath a form peculiar to himself, but he hath chosen to appear to us in ancient of ancients, yet in the form whereby we know him, he remaineth. Still unknown. His vesture is white, and his aspect that of unveiled face. He sitteth on a throne of splendor, and the white light streameth over 100,000 worlds. This white light will be the inheritance of the righteous in the world to come. Before all time, Ensof, the boundless one, the unoriginated and infinite being, existed without likeness, incomprehensible and unknowable. In the production of finite existence, the first act was the evolution of the Memra, or the book. Dang it, where'd I go? Okay, family, look, I'm gonna stop right here because I'm not gonna lie. I've been up late and I'm usually a bad reader, but this is really like I'm falling asleep while I'm reading. Like, it's good, like I'm reading some good stuff, but I need to stop right now, family, because I know it's horrible right now, and y'all probably like, dang, he messing up. So I'm gonna stop for now, and we gonna pick it up the next time I pick this book up, family. I apologize. It's very unprofessional of me. I'm a healthy, wise, strong, protected, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Be blessed, family. Shalom.